Hello, everyone. So here is Moonlight Soul, and here is my very good friend and a co-host, Adrienne Gibson from Just Kidding Astrology, and we are going to talk about the first eclipse of this season, and actually the very first eclipse in Libra, which is setting the tone for the upcoming 18 months. So welcome, Adrienne. Nice to have you back,
Thank you.
and I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Should be lots of good things. Juicy.
Yeah, very, very intense, and especially today as we recording that we just had this Mars square to Pluto and Venus changed sign. Venus is now officially in Virgo, so I think this
Yep,
is a good time to record this, perhaps.
I agree. So shall I just go ahead and put up the screen and we'll just jump in?
Yeah, let's just dive right in with this good Mars square to Pluto fashion.
There we go.
Excellent.
All right, can you see that? Yep, now you
Yeah,
can.
yeah, I can see it fine.
All right.
Cool.
So yeah, we're experiencing this new moon and it's attached to a solar eclipse. Which is when the moon and sun together are near or right on the lunar nodes. And as you can see in this chart, the sun and moon are just behind the south node. So this makes it an eclipse. I don't think it's a full-on eclipse, but it's an eclipse nonetheless. No matter where people can see it in the world, we're all going to experience the energy of it, which is bringing an intensity to the energies that we see here on the chart. It just makes them stronger.
Yeah, there is a hell of a lot of oppositions. And of course,
There are.
if
There
anything
are.
is being squared by Pluto, and actually this eclipse is being squared by Pluto, then this is not going to be an easy one.
No, I mean, yeah, we're gonna have to integrate all of that. It's a third quarter square though, so it's where we're taking things into our own hands and doing it in our own way.
Yeah, this
Crisis in belief, believing in ourselves. So that
the
makes
break
it different, a
exactly
different
is the
kind of struggle.
is the breaking free before the cycle ends, because actually I just have some dates here which I mentioned when I was making my video for this week, and the conjunction between Mars and Pluto that now in a 3/4 of which started in on the 3rd of 3rd 2022, and the conjunction with them, that will close this cycle, will happen Mars to Pluto on the 14th, on Valentine's Day. So I think this is so
Wow.
profound, because this is all about relationship. Of course, now being in the Libra season is all about relationship, and Mars just started this new cycle with the South Node, which is the resolution node, and of course, it's literally conjuncting this eclipse. So I really feel, I personally in my life, in my current experience, I am really feeling this eclipse already, and it's definitely cracking up the the intensity few notches up for sure.
For sure. The other thing I was noticing is that that yod formation is still there, and the south node. So the
Yeah,
south node is the fulcrum point, and so that even makes the south node even more intense. A lot of
yeah,
crises may be popping up for us, and which require some adjustments. We're still working on adjusting the way we relate to ourselves in the outer world, and
absolutely.
yeah, so it's intense. A yod, an eclipse, and
Yeah,
a
square from
third quarter
Pluto.
square to Pluto.
Exactly. And I mean, there are all these other things happening. Of course, like Venus is still in opposition with Saturn, and Chiron, as we were talking about in our past two videos, is still in a closing phase with North Node, and that will remain the case obviously until February next year. And it seems that February is going to be a packed month, because we're going to have the Mars Pluto conjunction, Venus Pluto conjunction, Mars Venus conjunction, and that's of course going to be happening in Aquarius season. And
That's
we'll
right.
have the Virgo full moon on 24/2/2024, which is just a crazy date. So I really feel that this eclipse is setting a stage for something.
Yeah, And it's interesting because not only is it setting a stage, but it's also culminating the eclipses that happened in April and May of this past spring. So where we were working on, how we get our needs met, and in a, to within relationships, and how we are empowering ourselves by doing that. And then in July, the nodes moved into Aquarius, to Libra and Aries, and that really brought the focus to working on ourselves and showing up for ourselves in relationships differently. And this is all part of that energy. So while we were culminating that end of it, we're also beginning and setting the stage for what's coming next, just like you said. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. And I really feel that's because of that Mars being in a new phase with South Node and Mars being the ruler of North Node. So of course, like Mars now started this new cycle with regards to South Node, which is the resolution to Pluto squaring the nodes this entire year. And that started with the South Node being in Scorpio until July this year, just like you said, it changed only in July. And Mars is the traditional ruler of South Node, was when it was in Scorpio, even though, of course, in evolutionary astrology, we use Pluto as the ruler of the Scorpio, but we still cannot overlook the connection of Mars in Scorpio. And at the moment, at the time of this eclipse, actually Mars is in the sign of its traditional rulership, so it's very strong. So Mars being in a sign of its traditional rulership, and it's in Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto. Mars is how Pluto acts consciously. It's very penetrative, deep energy, and it's the rule of the North Node. Of course, this eclipse is opposing the North Node in conjunction with Chiron, and Chiron is also ruled by Mars. So there is so much intensity coming to the surface, like literally we are digging out everything that still needs healing and adjusting, especially with regards to other people, because we are in Libra season, and all these other players on the show, on the stage, are showing us exactly what is still needing to be resolved.
Yep. Yes, I agree. And also I thought it was interesting that while we have that eclipse new moon energy in the center, we have this closing phase with Mercury on the one side and then the new phase with Mars on the other, which to me was really interesting. Like, we are closing out the way we have communicated, the way that we think within our relationships. And at the same time, this very powerful Mars energy really working on closing that square with Pluto, just strong energy to take those steps forward, like the push.
Yeah, and Venus has a mutual reception with Mercury. Venus is still the ruler of Sun. Venus is actually the ruler of the eclipse because Libra, but Mercury, as it's now in the sign of Libra, and Venus is, as of literally today when we're recording this video, which is Monday, Venus is now ruled by Mercury because she's in Virgo, and she's touching everything that Mars activated, Sun illuminated. Mercury touched twice because it was retrograde in Virgo until recently. So it's very interesting that Venus, as the ruler of this first eclipse in Libra, the first one of this next 18 months period, is actually the ruler of Mercury that is in a closing phase to the eclipse. So yeah, this definitely is pointing towards the way we identify and communicate and perceive this reality has to be, in a sense, expanded, because there are all these multiple dimensions and multiple realities going on at the same time. And it's like, everybody is behaving from the point of view that is real to them. Doesn't have to be your truth, but it's real to someone. So that definitely is a point of readjustments that needs to take place. But first, there is a point of culmination for the new cycle to begin.
Yes, yeah. And then with the opposition to Saturn and Pisces, where these old outdated structures are being integrated, they're dissolving these parts of us that we don't need anymore. And so this is also contributing to this, near closing phase of Venus toward the sun. Where we're making these adjustments, and we've been working on these adjustments for a few weeks. I think it was the new moon a month ago, where everything was in Virgo.
Yeah, exactly. And already Mars, Sun, Mercury, they all made a opposition to Saturn. Obviously, Moon makes opposition to Saturn every month, you know, when it's in Virgo. And also another interesting thing is that now that Venus is in the sign of Virgo, all these squares that she was making to Jupiter and Uranus will actually become trines. So Venus, you know, whatever she learned during her retrograde in Leo, which is now applied, she's putting into practice, because Virgo, very practical sign, so she's putting it into practice. And as I said, you know, having mutual reception with Mercury, this is obviously supporting both of them. You know, Mercury is supporting Venus, Venus is supporting Mercury, but she's actually during this time of this eclipse already in a trine by degree with Jupiter. She's not yet in a trine to Uranus, but she's already in a trine to Jupiter. She will be in a trine with Uranus during the next one, I believe. So this is very positive because Jupiter is ruled by Venus and is in retrograde, and is helping us to you know, start rewriting this story we're telling ourselves about ourselves.
Yes, and changing the way, you know, our outlook, what we believe, our own truth about what we need. And, you know, Venus is also sorting that out, while at the same time, Saturn is erasing those things that we don't need, making it a little bit clearer for us to see the direction that we need to head as we change the relationship with inside ourselves first.
Yeah.
As that's happening automatically, because inside and outside are a mirror of each other. As we change that relationship to ourselves, we'll be reflecting that to our relationships outside of us, which is going to create a change, and we'll be able to experience those changes.
Exactly, so, because everything is a mirror, and pretty much like all the external relationship we have are there to teach us about ourselves so we can learn, so we can adjust, because it's like we are all the main actors in our own play called life. And you know, you are that for yourself, and I'm just the, you know, just some side role person, and then you are that for me, and you know, we're learning something from each other, and this is like that for everyone. And this is the paradigm shift that is hopefully happening on a collective level, where eventually we get to the point where we see each other as such, that there is no this, like what we can see present in the current world with all this finger pointing and judgment and cancel culture and all that kind of stuff that's going on in the world, whereas actually you are just a reflection of me. There is something within me that needs healing, and what this Pluto, you know, and Saturn and all these planets are actually trying to tell us, that we have to take the responsibility and step into our own authority and actually own it and say, like, yes, I've created this situation to a certain extent, and what is this trying to help me to see and understand, and I'm the one who can change it, and the way I'm going to change it is to start from myself, because the only person we can change is ourselves. And that's why I feel with Mars, you know, now being in a sign of Scorpio is like, okay, we're gonna dig deep here in a good Scorpionic fashion, like get really intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And also the Chiron North Node conjunction, which is being integrated, is really allowing us all to like just show up for ourselves, to heal the wounds, or not really heal, because these are deep-seated wounds. I think these wounds go way back to when man lived in caves or lived in very close tribal communities, where if you did step out on your own, it meant sure death. And so people have this inner sensitivity to stepping out on their own and acting from within themselves. But we've evolved a long way from there, and now it's the time. I mean, the way that these planets look, you can see that we're working on stepping into ourselves and really having to cross that bridge of the insecurity that we feel when we do that, because it's deep-seated in our DNA. But we're being asked to move across that. And it's going to change the way we relate to people, you know, where we have been codependent in our relationships. We're going to be learning some inner stability and some self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and really have the opportunity to step into that right now with this new moon as it's in opposition to this solar eclipse. So I find it all very interesting.
It's fascinating to me, seriously, that the chart is so fascinating. And it's like also when we look at all the before and afters, and like even just the fact that the conjunction between Mars and Pluto is not going to happen in Capricorn, even though now the square is happening from, well, it happened from, you know, Capricorn Libra, because obviously this is past like almost 1 week by the time we have this lunation, but the actual conjunction is going to happen in Aquarius. And also Venus and Leo, in Venus in Mars, even though I remember during Leo season, everybody was thinking that Venus and Mars were going to conjunct, and they didn't. They were literally like a degree or 2 degrees away, but they didn't have the exact conjunction. And I remember that you were the one who mentioned it, that they're going to have a conjunction in Aquarius. They're going to
Aquarius, which is so interesting. The opposite sign, like, whoa. Where we're really going to be taking that information. So it was really necessary for Venus to go retrograde, where we really had to be able to internalize who we are and what our individual purposes are. And now it's following up behind, you know, playing catch up to the rest of the pack. Because that was really interesting. All of the inner planets and the South Node, they're all right together. There's just like a little group of them with you know, Venus closing up the pack, all to move forward and begin separating out. But by the time Mars gets to Aquarius, Venus will catch up and make that conjunction where we're actually going to move into that individuation stage. I think at the same time, Pluto will be in Aquarius then.
Exactly. It will be in Aquarius, because actually I've checked, I did my little research, and the last time Venus and Mars had a conjunction was also in Aquarius. It was on the, like literally Mars and Venus both conjuncted Pluto on the 3rd of March in 2022. But they were literally like minutes apart, but they didn't have a conjunction until 3 days later, when they were both on 0 degrees and 2 minutes of Aquarius. And next year they're going to conjunct again in Aquarius on 6 degrees and 58 minutes, and that will be right after they both conjuncted Pluto on, you know, 0 degrees and some minutes. So it's, to me, it's fascinating how these main actors, Mars and Venus, former players, you know, like Venus being the former ruler of the North Node, during the time when they had the conjunction in Aquarius first time, which was March 2022, North Node was already in Taurus. So Venus was the ruler of the North Node. Mars, you can say, traditional ruler of the South Node, even though Pluto, ruler of the South Node. However, the next time they're going to conjunct will be again in Aquarius, right after they both conjuncted Pluto again, you know, just like last time. But this time, Pluto will be in Aquarius also, and the you know, what was I going? Where was I going with this? They again going to be
Mars and Venus will be there.
Yes, and they're gonna be reversed. You know, obviously now they reversed rulers. Mars is the ruler of the North Node, where before Venus was the ruler of the North Node. So that's what I mean. It's so funny. Well, it's not funny, obviously, but to me, it's so fascinating that within these 2 years, everything has shifted. Everything has shifted. And I feel, just like you said, Venus had to go retrograde in Leo, so they, you know, can catch up again in Aquarius. Otherwise, you know, they would have conjuncted much faster, much sooner. And there's no coincidence in any of that. And there is no coincidence Venus is the last one, because she's the ruler of the resolution node, which is the South Node. So she had to go over everything, because we need to figure out, Pluto is pointing to the South Node saying, here is the problem. Here is the problem why you can't move forward. So Venus, like the ruler, is like, okay, oh my God, it's my responsibility. I need to figure it out. So she's like, okay, well, let me go over everything. And now she's behind, because she's like trying to, like, you know, Mars activates everything as the good leader of the pack. Sun illuminates everything. Mercury, like, lets us process everything, our cognitive function. And then Venus go like, okay, now you all guys usually pass the information on to me somehow through, you know, like, obviously now is her being the ruler of the three of them, until recently ruler of the Mars as well. And then she puts the information currently into practice and goes, okay, what am I going to do with this now to help me resolve this South Node so we can move to the North Node?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it looks like Venus is making a sextile to this, well, it's a sextile to the south node, I think. Let me
To
just,
Mars.
is it to Mars?
Virgo and
I-
Scorpio, yeah, because for sextile, I think she's, too far of an orb, but
Yeah, you're right.
she's like
It's
still within,
Mars.
like, like if you give 4-degree, or she's catching up with Mars for sure, but they are not meant to meet just yet. There's still
Not
work to
just
be
yet.
done.
We have a few more months. She'll come
Yeah.
along, play catch up for a while. Well, yeah. Do you know if Mars is, oh, well, Mercury, I think is going to go retrograde before too long. So
Oh yeah, at the end of November. Yeah, Mercury will be retrograde once more.
she'll make a contact and collect some of that information before she goes forward.
Exactly. So that's fascinating to me because, obviously Mercury going retrograde like every 3 months, I think, 3-4 months. And it's always making us reevaluate everything. Like, hey, think about it again, after all this lunation, all this information. So it's exactly like what we've been talking about in our past 2 videos, where we said that universe always gives us time, even though things are accelerated, there's so much happening, all these transformations, but universe always gives us time thanks to this retrograde, even though, like, at the time of us recording this, Pluto is still retrograde, but tomorrow night, Pluto is stationing direct. So during the time of this eclipse, Pluto is already direct. So now Pluto is helping us to put into practice whatever we had the opportunity to reevaluate and work on internally in the past 5 months since it turned retrograde in May. And this is a different energy because now we're going forward again, next step forward in the evolution.
Yeah, for sure. And notice that Saturn has moved all the way back to the very beginning of Pisces. It had gone up, I think, 7 degrees and then back, and now it's at the beginning, but it's not going to go further back. I think that's as far back as it's going to go.
It's going to stay there for a bit longer, I think, until the end of the month.
For a little bit longer, but then we'll have, the 2-year period of time or something before it moves even into Aries. We're going to have a nice long time to dissolve these old, outworn structures and to begin to step in and create the structure for ourselves, while Pluto is finishing up through Capricorn and then into Aquarius.
Exactly.
Where we're really gonna move.
And technically both Neptune and Saturn are going to conjunct North Node before they move into the sign of Aries, I believe, because the North Node is going to move into the sign of Pisces in January 2025 until summer 2026. And I mean, I don't know exactly, which months, I didn't check which months Saturn and Neptune are moving into Aries fully, but there for sure will be a conjunction in Pisces. And then all these big planets are going to move into the new signs. And by the time North Node will be in Aquarius, so literally just like what you just mentioned, that we'll have these extra 2 years after this year until, beginning 2026, we're going to have the opportunity to dissolve all these things that are coming to the surface now, that are being activated and brought to our attention because of this activation of Pluto squaring the nodes this entire year, and pointing towards everything that is now outdated because Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn had gone through its little stint in Aquarius since 2020 to 2023. So we know exactly what was going on during that period of time for all of us. And it gave us the opportunity to realize that to which extent do we want to continue externalizing our power, and that obviously is making us not feeling free and able to be ourselves potentially. And this is now being put into practice, that okay, now what we're gonna do with it, how we gonna respond to that information.
Exactly. My guess is that we'll all have opportunities during these next couple of months to be able to put it into practice. Different situations will pop up for each of us where we'll be able to say, oh, I acted this way the last time. Let me try this new way. Let me make that adjustment. This Venus in Virgo. Let's make that adjustment and just see what happens.
Exactly.
And I think that as we begin to notice those changes outside of us because of the adjustments that we make, I think that this will help us to create those adjustments more permanently within ourselves. They become seated within
Yes.
us.
Yeah, because that's
ahead.
how we get to the point of self-mastery. It's not by just thinking about it and stuff, but it's actually you have to do it, fall on your bum, stand up, do it again, and eventually after you've done it enough times, you become competent, you become the master of the trade, and then you can help others, support others. And that's what I really feel, and that's why there is no coincidence that there's all this Mercury, Venus, all in a closing phase, and but Mars is in a new phase conjunction with with the eclipse. Mars is leading the pack, right? And it's
Right.
because of this, it's like it's telling us that you need to find your courage to just face your fears and do it anyway. And then eventually you'll get to the other end of it, the opposition to the North Node in conjunction with Chiron. You get to the other end of it and you will feel empowered, but it's not going to just fall on your lap. And this is, once I had a good friend in London when I lived there when I was in my 20s, and I always admire her because to me she felt so confident even though she was so young, and she had such a like hard upbringing, like difficult upbringing, difficult childhood and stuff like that. And she said like, well, but this is how I become the person I am. It wasn't through having an easy time, it was like through all this having to have to face this difficult situation and find that inner strength and trust and try again. And this is literally what's going on a collective level, that we are being invited or pushed, because this is eclipse after all. There could be situations which are out of our control, especially with this in conjunction from Uranus and Neptune towards the south node. There could be universe interfering, the past might be knocking on the door without us doing anything. And also with the Mars being in a square to Pluto, and Pluto squaring the eclipse. I mean, this is not easy energy. We're trying to lighten up the mood, but this is very deeply transformational energy. It's literally like we facing Scorpio season soon, when the second eclipse is going to hit us. And so, like now with the Libra season, the stuff is stirred up externally by external players. But then we're going into Scorpio season, and then we'll be okay. Now you have to work on that. So this
Yes.
is like, this is not a like easy energy, but it's all to take us to this point where our spiritual and human muscles are being tested, and then you will find out what you're made of. And this is the only way we'll ever feel confident, empowered, resilient. I think this is the word, resilient. And it's not going to happen without facing that and trying and finding the way to the other side of it. So
Absolutely.
this is what I feel this Mars being in the forefront of the eclipse is saying.
I absolutely agree with you. This is a lesson in resilience. We're going to have to get out there and be knocked around by the experiences to build that resiliency. You don't just have it. It's something that's gained through experience.
And that's the Venus in Virgo, sextile in that Mars. It's saying that, well, you just have to like put the information into practical application so it can become a wisdom. And
Absolutely.
It's a continuous process of learning and adjusting, and that's life. That's what I even keep saying to my clients, that it doesn't mean that you overcome this next hurdle and you can just chill for the rest of your life, like, oh yeah, all is good now, because there always will be something, because this is a school of life. We didn't come here just to sit on our hunches for 85 years and then check out and go, yeah, I had a good time. I mean, maybe there was an incarnation like that, maybe for some there was, even this time, but I very much doubt that, because being alive at this time of collective change, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure for some people it's easier than others, but everything is coming to the surface, because with the Saturn being in Pisces, I really feel that it's not just this lifetime. It's not just your lifetime. It's all the ancestor wounding. It's all the previous lifetimes. It's all this grand closing of old cycles. That's why so much stuff is coming up collectively and individually. So with the Mars in Scorpio, we have to face that shadow in ourselves to then, to then be able to get to the other side of it, and actually to be able to then, because of the eventually I mean, already there is a trine to Saturn between Mars, but eventually there will be trine to Neptune as well, because of this healing. And it's not just healing to to you or to me, it's healing to obviously ourselves, all the previous incarnations and the roles that we played, but to the collective. Like I really I'm tapping into this energy that is much bigger than just me, one person, that there is this
Yes.
huge collective, human collective healing, where we have to get to the point by facing our own shadows and healing that, to actually face the shadow of human collective as one energy, and forgive and heal that, so we can move forward, so it's not dragging us continuously and creating this cancer culture and division and separation and all this re-traumatizing and reliving the same experience over and over and over again. And I
Yes.
think this is what needs to take place.
Oh, absolutely. And as I've said before, the collective does not just change. The collective changes through the individual actions of all of the different people. And so, this is where we are. We're focusing on our individual selves. And as we individuate and become ourselves and participate actively in the shift, we'll all see the outside world change.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to actually acknowledge the difference between, because I know that that's most of the time what comes through people's life, but isn't it selfish? How can I just dedicate myself to myself all the time? But actually it's the opposite. I think at this time that we live in right now, not to do it is selfish. Not to do it is selfish,
I'm
because
agreeing.
if everyone, like in their own right, as a person to person, don't take the time to actually do this inner processing, where, okay, like, again, this is what I keep reminding people all the time. It's not like I'm sitting on my high spiritual high horse and say I have it all figured out, you people, you do that. I know I'm struggling on daily basis, I'm getting triggered on daily basis, I'm being reminded of what is still not healing in me on daily basis. This is a continuous process of learning and readjusting. But the whole point is, like, once you know and you sit with it, you cannot unknown. But then is, what do you gonna do with it? So, like, once we get triggered, whether it's through social media, television, whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter, whatever it is that brings things up to your consciousness, right? Then what are we gonna do with it? Are we gonna keep strolling and just say, oh, it's nothing to do with me, not my fault, right? Or are we actually gonna sit with it and try to dig deep, like, why do I feel this way? What is this trying to show me? And how can I change it? And how can I perhaps next time respond differently? And this
Yeah.
is how we're gonna slowly change things, because they're not gonna happen overnight, but they're not gonna happen at all unless each and every single one of us starts being aware of what and why is it happening. And this
Yeah.
is what nobody can do for you, only you can do it for yourself.
And I feel like this is what this finger of God, the two inconjuncts, are about. We'll experience crisis after crisis after crisis until we understand and realize and become aware, essentially, of what it is that we're doing within the relationships to cause the relationship repeat, the repeat cycle that we've been on for such a long time. We have to have these experiences to become aware of ourselves. And if we continue to play the blame game, nothing is going to change, because who was it? Somebody in one of my groups said, oh, it was a conference that I was watching yesterday. When you point your finger outward, there are three fingers pointing back to you, is what she said. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the saying, but that's the truth. It's not going to happen outside of you unless it's happening within you first.
And that's why, like, even with the situations that are going on, publicly on mainstream media, I always say, and this is not again to judge, criticize, or make anybody feel ashamed or inferior or anything, but I always say, who is the first one to throw the stone at that person? It ain't gonna be me, because I know that I have enough in my closet to deal with. It ain't gonna be me, and I don't have time for that. I don't have time to put energy into all this stuff that actually, when we get to the nitty-gritty of that, and this is kind of what I feel that perhaps people might find helpful, is that how does this actually make me feel, this situation? Me watching this stuff, hearing this stuff, and even putting judgment onto this stuff, that, like, I mean, I had never felt better by putting more judgment onto situation or making somebody else like crucifying someone else, whether it was, you know, like um, you know, in whichever context, right? It doesn't make me feel better about myself. Like, I know that people, you know, like, I, you know, from my personal experience, that sometimes we believe that if I make you feel as bad as I feel, then maybe I feel better, right? But it doesn't work. It doesn't work,
No.
because we are just an extension of one another, even though we are a unique expression of the source in our own unique way, playing the role that we play, that we chose to play, and following our own sense of purpose and destiny. But all in all, and at the baseline of it, like, being a human race, being a human collective consciousness, we are not, there is much more that connects than separates us, because we all have,
Yes.
whether wherever you come from, whatever is your color skin, whatever is your religion, sexual orient, whatever the hell it is, you know, that you think is separating you from someone else, we came from the same place, we came back to the same place, we all need to sleep, eat, go to bathroom. We, in essence, you know, the details of it look different for everyone, but that thing which makes us human, we share the same thing, right? So then when we get to the core. Oh, did I froze?
For just a minute, but you're back.
Yeah, it's the, you know, universe is like, okay, maybe it's enough preaching for people. But yeah, but you know, in essence, this is practically what's happening on the, you know, this is the caveat, I feel, of this eclipse, is telling us the way we act as a human collective needs to change, because like,
Yes.
even Pachamama, Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you call it, is done with this. Like, watching her kids fighting and hating each other is like, come on already, you know,
Yeah.
for how much longer, you know? So that's why it's just like you said, you know, with this Neptune and Uranus pointing the finger to South Node, things will happen in whichever way they need to happen, because first there is a red flag, there is a nudge, and then if none of that work, then it's a tower moment, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. But it all points back to the inner work. We're all doing the inner work. And it appears we're doing it through the platform of the outer world right now, through those relationships. But like you said, we're moving into Scorpio season, where it'll all come back inward, where we'll be able to look deeply into ourselves. You know, for me at least, the time of year that Scorpio comes around is, you know, I'm done with the farming, we're putting the gardens to bed, and it's my personal quiet time, where it's like, okay, I have really nothing to do but think about what's happening on the inside. Of course, very often I will try to distract myself from that, because it's what I do.
Well, you're coming to see me in Mexico, because that's where
That,
I'm gonna be on my Pluto line.
yeah, yeah. I should check out and see what line it is for me. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to do it.
But you see, this is like why, you know, like, we just have to be in awe of the intelligence of this something that we can't necessarily even define and label. That all these, like, you've talked about before, that the natural rhythm of nature, you know, the sun moving from masculine to feminine, from external to internal, the yin and yang energy, how they continuously, like, you know, like, in balance and harmonizing each other. Because right now we are in masculine, you know, Libra energy, yang energy, which is why all these other players are becoming so prominent, you know, on our scene. All these people like, you know, like making us aware of things, these external conflicts. And yeah, and then the Scorpio season will come, and it will be this internal conflict, and then again it will be the external, and then again internal. So
Yep.
it's fascinating to observe the natural rhythm of
Yep.
of
It's like the
everything.
breathing. It's the
Yeah,
breathing. It's the breathing of the universe. And we are
exactly.
being affected by that flow, in or out, you know?
Exactly. And again, I don't want to people feel like, you know, oh my God, doom and gloom is coming. Because you know, as always, I feel like you know, like a parrot for repeating myself. You are the creator of your reality, so you decide how do you want to experience this. And despite the fact that yes, it's eclipse, and there will be things that are out of our control, because, you know, we don't always get to decide, because our higher selves decide it also, and that sometimes overrides our free will over here in, you know, being right here right now. But all that said, we still have a free will with regards to how we respond to that situation. So even if
Yes.
things happen externally, which we consciously or unconsciously, you know, like chose to experience, whatever, but then we still have the free will of how we're going to respond to this situation. And universe will always test us, always, all of us. Universe will always test us and give us the opportunity to make this new choice, this different choice under this old or the same circumstances, to see like, okay, well, you've tried that one, didn't quite work out or get you where you wanted to go. How about you try this other one and see how that goes? And yeah,
This is how it works. So ultimately, even if we're going through a very difficult time, it's all for the purpose of growth. Not only growth for our individual selves, but the growth for humanity as a whole. We're all experiencing different things, and it's intense. It's an intense time. This moon is going to hit at 1:55 p.m. on Saturday. So it'll be at, or Saturday for me. Other
us,
people.
For us here too in Europe, it will be UK time. I have 6:55.
Yeah.
But you know, obviously, even Aussies. I mean, for them it might be like, I mean, I don't know exactly the, you know, the time, but I think
It'll
for them
be,
it might be early hours of 15th. But for
yes,
majority of people, it will happen on October 14th. But
yes,
from the videos I watched today, I think the eclipse will be impacting the most the US, the central and part of the South America. That's like where it's going to be visible. So we just see how, you know, because this is obviously a new moon. So even though it is an eclipse, it's new moon. So it's not going to like everything's just gonna fall apart in one day or something is gonna just completely change in one day. It's a seeding of an energy, but it's a
yes.
seeding of an energy which is karmic. And because Pluto is involved here, being, you know, squaring the nodes, obviously, and Pluto actually is the ruler of Mars at the moment. I mean, from the modern rulership perspective, this is a major shift which we obviously we don't see yet what exactly is going to come out of it because of this in conjunction, but it's going forward. It is like there's no going back from here. There's no going back, even though Pluto will make one more retrograde into Capricorn next year, which, you know, I want people like to be repeatedly aware of, because we're not done with Pluto in Capricorn just yet. There will be one more retrograde, even though Pluto will move into Aquarius in January. But all in all, this is seeding a completely new direction, and we're not going back from there.
No, we're not. We are definitely growing forward, and changes will need to be made. That's where we're at right now, and we're going to experience some conflicts, inner and outer conflicts, and we'll make those adjustments. You know, we'll relate to ourselves differently, and you know, pay attention to what is falling away from us, because things are falling away, with both the Saturn in Pisces and the Neptune in Pisces. So
yeah, go on. No, you go on, finish the thought.
Oh, so yeah, these things are falling away, and from there, new things are going to fill the place. And part of this energy is really having to do with ourselves. I know that there's a lot of energy focused on the outside of ourselves, but that's just sort of a mirror game.
Exactly.
It's internal. It's all internal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wanted to add that still we have this, you know, the sextile between Pluto and Neptune, and trine between Pluto and Uranus, and sextile between Neptune and Uranus. So, you know, these are the big players. These are all the planets that affect us the most, because they have such a slow movement. They take so long to transit one sign. And the fact that Saturn, as the ruler of Pluto currently, is on this what we call anaretic degrees, 0 degrees, it's a very karmic degree. So we can again see how this, whichever is taking place on the individual or collective level, these are life-changing circumstances. this is hugely transformative, because Saturn on being on 0 degrees in Pisces, which is again the 0 as the unlimited potential, everything is possible. This is where things are being birthed. And in this Pisces, which is again being like back to the source, we letting go of something which lost meaning, but at the same time there is a new potentiality being birthed at the same time. And because it's on a 0 point, it's an unlimited potential. That's why we have this in conjunction, because nobody knows what this is going to look like, because we collectively created it, but it's not created yet. So this is why it is so important for people to focus and really feel into what it is they do want, not what it is they don't want. Because the main aspect of the manifestation and law of attraction is you feeling into it, and your feelings are what's creating your reality. Like obviously it's our thoughts, our beliefs, but it's the feeling, like that's what gives us this extra power. So with the Saturn being on 0 degrees and this being a new moon, of course, there is this opportunity, even though it is an eclipse, and they said this is not a good time to put intention, but still when you are presented with a situation which you don't enjoy or like, or having an encounter with someone and you don't obviously like whatever is going on there, it's an opportunity to then, when we processing that encounter, to feel into how would I want that encounter to be in an ideal world, in the world that you would like to live in. And this is, with the Saturn, obviously Pluto being ruled by Saturn, and Pluto sextiling Neptune, and Uranus sextiling Neptune. There is this, like, literally these big players are there helping each other, supporting each other, which is saying here is the past, here is the future, but it's a 0 point. So you as Saturn, creator of your reality, being directly connected to the source, if you want to go to spiritual aspects of this, you can create whatever you want. You just need to take responsibility for the inner knowing that you are creating that, and then just decide what it is that you want to experience.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we are writing the story, and we just need to figure out how.
We're learning. Venus is in Virgo. We're learning. It's a school of life. We're learning from each other. Mercury is in Libra. We're learning from each other.
Yeah. North Node is in Aries, so it's going to be trial and error. We're going to try this, we're going to try that, until we find what it is that works for us. And for each of us, it'll be different.
Yeah, because it's the Aquarius, it's individuation, it's your own unique signature.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this is so multidimensional, like so multi-layers, this chart, even though
it's very awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like I am in no way saying it's going to be easy, but again, I'm in no way saying that the world is ending, guys, just get ready, like
no.
That this is
the
all
world's not ending.
there is no like, and this is exactly what's actually being in Libra season, what we are trying to achieve is the balance, that, well, it doesn't have to be one extreme or another. We can just find a way that is like win-win for everyone, right? But before we get to that point, there will be a lot of extremes where we're trying to figure it out, just like we've all been when we were little and learning to walk and all these kind of things. But in essence, like you said, Adrienne, it will just point you back to you, whatever you do, whatever you
points back to you. How do you want it to look? And this is the part where we're writing our own story. And it's going to take a lot of internalization and thinking about things and thinking differently. Mars is in the closing phase. Mercury, sorry. And this shifts and adjustments that we need to make inside ourselves. And I think that the situations that pop up for us each time, they are giving us the opportunity to make a different choice and to act differently. And it's going to be trial and error. But if we're paying attention, and I think that paying attention is a big part of this, being aware that this is how the universe shapes and helps us to grow, can be very helpful.
Like observing the patterns in you know, in the material, like with the Uranus in Taurus, it's helping us to break the patterns, break out of the patterns of the complacency and the comfort zone, because you know, Venus is in Virgo, so Venus is saying there are things that needs to be adjusted.
Yes. Yeah. For sure.
So yeah, so I think, I don't know, would you like to add anything else?
You know, I think we've hit this horse pretty good.
Yeah, we beat it to the ground.
I mean, you know, things are so clustered in places, and you know, the backdrop hasn't changed much. You know, what's really new is this eclipse and the new moon, and the positions of these inner planets are where I see the focus to be, and I think we've really discussed that pretty well.
Yeah, and of course we'll have the Mercury conjuncting Sun, and both Sun and Mercury square in Pluto afterwards. So we see like what more clarity we might gain when that takes place. But all in all, we probably have much more clarity with regards to this theme that is being seeded now during the full moon in Libra, which will be March 25th. So yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be the lunar eclipse.
Exactly. So that will be the illumination point. Yeah. I mean, the things are highlighted. But before that takes place, we still have the last one in Taurus to tackle, which we'll talk about next time.
Yeah, for sure. So well, yeah. I appreciate you inviting me, Mila. I love this time that we have together.
Always.
It helps me grow.
And me, you know, it's always good to brainstorm and see how we can cook something together with regards to these energies.
Yeah, for sure. Here, I'm gonna unshare the screen. And here we are.
Excellent. So as always, Adrienne, tell us what you've got new, and where can people find you?
You can find me on my Facebook page, Jess Kieran Astrology. You can also reach out to me at heartplace@peoplepc.com. I have a Substack account where I post my moon reports and some other little goodies that have to do with the astrological weather. And you can subscribe there or reach out if you're interested in a reading.
Absolutely. And also Adrienne has a course that you can purchase from her to help you navigate.
I have a course on relationships for Libra season. It's the Essential Needs course, and also reach out at Heart Place at People PC, and I can get you set up with that.
Perfect. And as always, guys, you can find me on all the social media at moonlightsoul369, and also on my website at www.moonlightsoul369.com. So if you would like to connect, that's where you're going to find me. So thank you again, Adrienne, and we'll see you all next time for the lunar eclipse in Taurus.
Yeah.